Well, good morning. This is not the Easter talk I thought I would be giving today. My mind has been very busy with thoughts like, this isn't how I envisioned Easter morning. This isn't what Easter is supposed to look like in a church. Well, isn't that so? As we have been uber learning in the last month or so, how things are supposed to be is no longer valid. The words "we've always done it that way" are ringing very hollow right now. In fact, I might even go so far as to question whether that phrase has now become obsolete, just like that. And since things are so different this year, I thought we might want to retain a little bit of tradition in our time together. So I want to invite you all on an Easter egg hunt this morning. My talk title is Searching for the Cosmic Easter Egg. And this year, we have a golden opportunity to mine the Easter story of the gold that it contains. And that gold can guide us through major change and transformation, all the things that we are experiencing right now. Many ancient creation stories contain the cracking open of a cosmic egg that results in the birthing of all life. And this brings us to the original what came first question, of course. But nonetheless, the idea of new life hatching, coming forth, is what the Easter message is all about. And so as we go on a cosmic Easter egg hunt this morning, let's see what elements of the Easter story we can put into our basket to help us rise up from this experience into a greater understanding of who we are. The last few days of the life of Jesus, as recorded in the scriptures, is pretty familiar to most of us. On Good Friday, Jesus was hung on a cross and crucified. His body was placed in a tomb with a stone covering the entrance and Roman guards stationed at the opening to make sure that no one moved his body. And then on Sunday morning, Mary Magdalene arrived to anoint his body and finds the stone rolled away, and she discovers the risen Jesus. A story of crucifixion, entombment, and resurrection. And there's some question as to whether this story is true or not. Did it really happen? Or is it a legend, a mythological tale? Well, pagan mythology was certainly alive and well long before the time of Jesus, with stories about a savior born to some sort of mating between a god and a virgin happening at the winter solstice, the darkest, coldest time of the year. And the savior goes on to perform miracles and ultimately be sacrificed at the spring equinox, finally returning after spending a little time in the netherworld. Sounds strangely familiar. And many of the traditions from Easter harken back to pagan ritual predating Christianity, bunnies and eggs as symbols of fertility and new life coming forth, a celebration of the return of the sun. So whether it's an accurate account of true events, or if the story is symbolic or ancient mythology, the importance of it doesn't change, because it's the truth with a capital T that's contained within the story that is the real gold. And that truth can transform our lives as we look within ourselves and find meaning from it. And I don't know about you, but that truth has never been more relevant to me than it is right now. When things change as rapidly, as abruptly as they have, it turns our world that we know upside down. And at first, we can try to struggle and get everything back to normal, to the way it was before. If we're in the habit of dining at our favorite restaurant every week, or going to the gym every day, or hanging out at the neighborhood coffee shop for our morning break, whatever has been our habit, our norm, suddenly it's all shaken up. And we have to stare that habit in the face, while struggling to deal with things being very different, at least for now, and as the news surfaces each day, maybe for longer than we anticipated. And so our habitual actions have had to be modified. Life doesn't look the same as it did. And for those of us who are in good health and have access to the necessities, this can be more of an inconvenience than a hardship. So I certainly do not want to minimize the plight of those who are really suffering deeply, people who are sick or have family members who are sick and dying, people in refugee camps, detention centers, medical workers on the front lines, people in essential services, those in poverty with no income. That certainly makes my giving up my weekly breakfast date or my daily workout pale in comparison. I have good food, clean water, a roof over my head. I'm sheltering in place with my husband. I'm staying connected to my loved ones online. My family is healthy. There's much to be grateful for. At the same time, I can also see how my mind can take enforced change and create greater suffering by resisting it, grieving those small things that I used to take for granted. To paraphrase the English poet Christopher Fry, our daily affairs have become soul-sized. And that really captures it for me, soul-sized. And so I can spend my time pining for what was, trying to fix it, struggling to change what's happening in my world back to the way it was, to the way I like it to be. And so regardless of our situations, whatever we are personally experiencing, the deeper consequences of this shakeup can bring us face to face with a crucifixion experience of sorts. It can feel like the death of our former way of living. And resistance just creates more suffering. Byron Katie says it so well, when I argue with reality, small r, I lose, but only 100% of the time. And it's recorded in the Easter story that Jesus had his moment of resistance in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he asked to have the cup taken from him. And then as he worked through his fear, he said, "Nevertheless, thy will be done." I don't want this situation, but I accept that it's happening. And here the story is revealing our first cosmic egg in the transformational process egg hunt that we're on. And that is getting to a place of accepting what is. Doesn't mean we necessarily like it, but when we can accept that this is what's happening now, that's a big step. And that entails releasing resistance, shifting to a non-resistance, accepting inner state. And ironically, acceptance of what is actually opens the door to something new emerging, especially when we become willing to crack open the experience and find the gift inside. So acceptance is an important turning point in the crucifixion resurrection story, accepting what is and then asking, how can I grow? How can I learn from this? What's the gift? Now that doesn't mean it's all smooth sailing after that, because in order to continue on this journey, we have to enter the tomb. And when we do, we discover that in its emptiness, we come face to face with the abyss. And it mirrors back to us a reflection of what's going on within our own psyche. And when I entered the tomb and asked to be shown the gift, to be given guidance to show how I can grow and learn from this, well, I saw some stuff that I didn't really want to see. Like how busyness has been my drug of choice. How tied I have been to a frenetic pace of living. How I practically thrive on stress. And how when I don't have anything to do or anywhere to be, I feel very uncomfortable. It feels like something is wrong. What an amazingly valuable lesson this past month has unearthed for me. Now, to be clear, the mirror wasn't showing me anything I didn't already know. This was not news to me. This way of living is practically our culture's, marching music. So it wasn't a huge aha for me. It was much more of a gentle awakening to the power of sitting still. As the Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron calls it, the power of staying with the discomfort. So another egg for our basket is the practice of staying, resting in whatever's happening, even when it's uncomfortable, sinking deep within, becoming present to our experience right now, moment by moment, and not running from it. You see? In my case, letting the feelings arise that excessive busyness have been helping me to avoid. But when those feelings arrive, we don't just get overrun by our emotions. We need to meet those feelings with compassion, with kindness toward ourselves. Very important. This is the kind of work we need to do when we find ourselves in the tomb. So here is another Easter egg find: compassion and kindness toward ourselves and toward all of us on this journey together. A very necessary component of our transformative journey. And so if we look to this sudden tearing away of many of our cultural norms as a crucifixion experience, maybe we've asked for the cup to be taken from us. But when we shift to acceptance and then go on a cosmic egg hunt looking for the gift, we are now using our time in the tomb for our spiritual evolution. Parker Palmer wrote, "Clinging to what you already know is the path to an unlived life." Whoops, where did he go? Okay. That's the quote. "Clinging to what you already know is the path to an unlived life." And we have to have that period of quiet reflection, a slower pace of life, taking the time to commune with the divine presence within, asking for guidance and a deeper understanding. And if we shortchange this part of the process, then the changes that result are much more superficial, an unlived life, basically. You know, the story of a caterpillar to butterfly has been used so often as an analogy for the Easter story that it borders on cliche. And so I hesitate to even use it. And yet, it's a cliche with total truth lying within it. It is rich with lessons we can learn, guideposts for us to follow in the time between crucifixion and resurrection. So Sharif Abdullah asked the question, what do you think's going through the mind of the caterpillar as it stops eating and attaches its butt to a twig? It's a great question. Well, it probably isn't thinking, wow, I'm about to dissolve into unrecognizable goo. You know, I can't wait to have my present form completely disappear into the unknown. Probably not. In the same way, we typically don't relish the thought of our world crumbling around us, but the potential for transformation in those disruptive moments can completely shift our world. So we can think of this lockdown consciousness as the time for cocooning ourselves, taking along a healthy dose of compassion, flexibility, willingness to change. Then it becomes a time of preparation for us to get ready to butterfly ourselves into a new consciousness. Sharif Abdullah points out that the word butterfly has now become a verb. And we cannot hurry this process. We have to face and feel the emotions within us, whatever they may be: sadness, grief, loneliness, anxiety, fear, frustration, boredom, whatever it is for you that comes from being isolated or apart from your loved ones and your normal way of life. We feel those feelings, we meet them with compassion. As John O'Donohue says so wisely, may there be kindness in your gaze when you look within. I love that. Such important work for us. It helps us to inch our way out of the tomb. And what the events of the past few weeks have clearly shown me is how much my mind creates the drama, how much my mind craves certainty, how disruptive it is for things to change without my consent, how painful, in fact, to have things be out of my control. But as Dr. Fauci said, the virus controls the timeline. Coming out of the tomb means being released from that prison of our own minds. You see it? Releasing the chains from our cultural norms. Seeing a new way of living that was hidden from view, from our awareness until now. It was always there. We just hadn't seen it. It's about the birth of something greater, something new. And that has never been up for us more than it is right now. And it takes time. Stephanie Marshall, the educator Stephanie Marshall, writes, adding wings to caterpillars does not create butterflies, it creates awkward, dysfunctional caterpillars. Butterflies are created through transformation. So we don't just paste a set of wings on. There's a transformative process that's necessary for us to be able to fly. And when we take the time to really walk through this experience, mining the gold from it, when we give ourselves permission to use the time to transform, when we go deeper to a place of self-compassionate reflection, releasing what's holding us back from acceptance and really listening for our guidance from Spirit, when we truly can get to a place of gratitude, finding the gift, transforming power is unleashed. A new level of creativity opens up for us, is now available to us. Something new can be born. But just remember, a new birth is not easy, it's hard. It takes work, labor. What we're going through, all of us, whatever our situation, let's have compassion for ourselves and for each other. Because this is difficult. It's nothing we've dealt with before. And as we find our way through it all, we want to do so while honoring this transformative process that we're engaged in. Maya Angelou said it best: we delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. So give yourself the gift of kindness as you go through this. The Franciscan priest, Richard Rohr, reminds us that every day is Easter, for those who are willing to see it. There's always life breaking through, always restoration happening, always resurrection taking place, always glorious rebirth happening, always miracles in our midst. Always. So although this may not be our typical Easter, I've come to realize that the word typical should never be used to describe the miraculous event of rebirth and evolution. It doesn't even belong in the same sentence. And so the cosmic eggs of acceptance of what is, of meeting our feelings with compassion, and because of that self-compassion, being able to stay with the discomfort, can help us to miraculously emerge from the tomb of despair into the rising up of the light. This week I read a wonderful poem reminiscent of Dr. Seuss called How the Virus Can't Steal Easter. Thanks to Royce and Annette for sending that to me. And in it I was reminded of an important truth. Yes, the churches may be empty this Sunday, but so is the tomb. That's the whole point of Easter. And so although you are not physically present, as I look out at this sea of vacant chairs, instead of seeing the emptiness of this room, I'm shifting to 2020 vision to see the miracle that is taking place. I'm envisioning every one of you rising up into a greater, ever greater expression of who you've come here to be, the presence of divine love on this planet. So thank you all for joining us this morning for your cosmic egg hunt. I wish you and your family a glorious and happy Easter, and so it is.